Tēnā koutou, my name is Regan Balzer and I was brought up in Rotorua mainly and a wee bit in Hamilton, and being an artist in the Tūheitia Portrait Awards has been very special for me on many levels. One really important thing for me is that we're able to talk and celebrate our ancestors, because a lot of these stories haven't been shared, because a lot of our knowledge or history hasn't been valued, then it hasn't been put forward. So I really appreciate the Portrait Gallery as well as the Tūheitia for putting this amazing exhibition on. So I'm just going to talk a bit about my tupuna, my ancestor Huhana Hunt, who I've painted here in this painting. So Huhana's mother hails from the Haurauta Waka, and back in the days when they had the land wars, Ngāpuhi came down and took these beautiful singers called the songbirds and took them up to the far north, so they were revered for their singing ability. And Huhana's mother, she actually married Captain Johnson, and Captain Johnson, he had brothers and they were known for sailing around the Auckland Harbour, and of course he was Pākehā, European, and he married this beautiful wahine Māori, and they had Huhana Hunt and other, at that time Huhana Johnson and others. Anyway, Huhana, her first marriage was to a Rudolph, and she had children in the far north, and then she left the north and she came to Rotorua and married Thomas Hunt, and as a result had 10 children to him. 2 sets of twins, and one of the set of twins was my great-grandmother Ellen Hunt. So Ellen Hunt and Huhana and Kathleen, who was a Rudolph, as well as other children, kind of went into the business of guiding, because in Rotorua there's this wonderful geothermal activity that isn't seen everywhere in the world, so lots of tourists would come. So Huhana was one of those wonderful guides who their whole life was about manaaki and celebrating te ao Māori and the beautiful gems, the beautiful history and culture that is in te ao Māori. And so that's why my tupuna is really important to me, because in a time when we were being discouraged to speak our language, we were told, that our culture was irrelevant and we needed to follow, a non-Māori culture. People like Huhana were maintaining that ahika and those lines. So it's been a beautiful journey, just kind of reconnecting with my great-great-grandmother. So I never actually met her. She just kind of emanates this really loving warmth. And when I was painting her, she'd just kind of smile, it was like I was with my great-great-grandmother. And her character would come out. So it's interesting painting a portrait, because they kind of take on this life essence or Māori, and so we believe in this life essence that objects have, that they're not just a non-functional object, but they actually take on attributes and their own living essence. So for me, that's what Huhana did. So she was often in my sitting room while I was painting her, and different things would happen in the house, different conversations, and it was weird, but it really seemed like her expression would change depending on if she approved or, when she was really excited. So it was quite an interesting process to have her with us, and beautiful. So we have her here standing in front of the gates at Whakarewarewa. So these gates are really well known, and a lot of the guides had photographs in front of this beautiful waharo or gateway into the thermal village. And so what she's wearing, she was actually wearing in the photograph that I utilised. So she has these beautiful little poi and the raukura or the feather. So all of these have their own symbolic cultural connections, which are really beautiful for me. And if people explore things further, then they'll know. She's got this kahu kiwi, so a kiwi feathered cloak. And she's reading a newspaper, which kind of brings in kind of the new world, but also that ability to be in both worlds at the same time. So, being worldly and learning about what's happening currently, but also celebrating where she's come from. So, what else? So there's a few little hidden things in her works. What I like to do in my works in particular is to bring out the colour. So there's lots of layering of colour. Of course, this was came from a sepia coloured photograph, but I wanted to kind of bring in some richness and that vitality and vibrancy that our people have and our culture have. So that's hence why the colours are richer than rich. And then I have a few kind of little things that I'll share with you that not everybody knows. So one of my journeys, so her grandson actually, who was my great uncle, I had the privilege to travel to Italy with him to commemorate the soldiers who fell in World War II. And we travelled to Cassino, but we also travelled to Sangro River, which is where his younger brother passed away in the first fight there. Going on that journey with him and coming back, one thing he instilled is that those sacrifices and those things that happened that our tupuna worked through need to be remembered. So in my work, I'll sometimes incorporate some of those aspects, just in memory of them. So here we have, there's 4 little carved heads, wheku heads in the background that you may or may not notice when you see the painting. But each of these heads represents one of the companies of the Māori battalion. So you have the gum diggers in the north. So they're represented here with the bell-shaped head style carving. And then you have the penny divers from the central plateau, so Rotorua and around those areas. And the penny divers were named after actually back in Waka village, Whakarewarewa village, we have the youth who would jump off and call out for pennies, and then the tourists would throw pennies in the water and then they'd dive under. So it was quite, a tourist attraction in itself, and then the kids would go and have buy ice cream or something afterwards. So it's a bit of a tradition that happened. So the penny divers, the company B, were named after them. And then you had the cowboys from the East Coast because they love to ride their horses. And that's kind of in here with the little cowboy hat. So it's kind of there, but you might see it, you might not. And then you had Ngāti Walkabout, which was Taranaki and right through to the south. And then some other people who came on board. There was, a couple of Pākehā and Indians, and so the rest of Aotearoa. So really this is in homage and memory of those who have gone on, and just celebrating those stories, because actually what our ancestors have traversed and created, and the works that they've done has actually forged a path for where we are today. So I stand here in honour and acknowledgement of those who have passed on, and all of our ancestors here in the Portrait Gallery exhibition. It's a wonderful, wonderful celebration of our culture, actually of Aotearoa, and a coming together of all our worlds. So yes, this is Regan Balzer signing off. This is my picture, and hope you get to see the rest of the artworks in the show. Tēnā koutou.